Here we go. All right. Welcome everybody to the after party panel discussion with our HR leader brain trust meeting. We just wrapped up a fantastic meeting and we were just talking about some of the main topics, the main challenges that HR leaders are having right now. And one of those challenges is discussing, actually, I found it interesting that the major challenge was how do you keep employees from turning over in this competitive market? And so that's also a challenge. And I think something that goes hand in hand with that is employee mental health wellness programs. That was the second biggest challenge that HR leaders are facing right now, or at least the top voted challenge. And so we've got a great panel here today, a number of people from our HR Leader Brain Trust here that would like to weigh in on this conversation. And so with that, I'd like to just kick it off and thank you all for joining us. And my question to start this kind of discussion is, what's some pointers that you all would have when rolling out a mental health, an employee mental health program for your company? Anyone want to kick us off?
I will. So one of the things that I found that had the most impact was actually just being open and honest with my team. Because while everybody was feeling the same, no one wanted to talk about it. No one wanted to admit that they had more on their plate than they could handle, that they were more stressed than they could handle. And when I shared with my team that that's where I was at and why I was looking into different programs to try to help the team, that's when they really came to me. I had a lot of people come to me after the Zoom meeting where I rolled that out and just really thanked me for opening up and letting them know that they weren't really alone.
Super great insight. It goes back to that authenticity. You know, in business, we try to put on our best face all the time. And Amelia, I actually know that on your LinkedIn, you talk quite openly about mental health challenges that you have. And I think it gives people permission to also share that, and it brings people together. Do you want to weigh in on that at all, Amelia?
Yeah, I mean, what I've seen that's worked really well in other organizations that are doing it really well is just as high up from the top as you can go. You can get the CEO and the executive suite like kind of sharing their own personal challenges, giving their employees permission to not be okay. That's where we see like the greatest open culture where people feel really comfortable talking about mental health and asking for help when they need it, taking mental health days, accessing therapy if that's available. So it definitely starts at the top. So that's what we've seen as far as best practices.
Cool. What else? What other insights would you all have when people are considering rolling out a mental health employee program?
I can give a little bit of insight. I don't think we do it perfectly. I think we have a lot of room for growth. I have found that regularly resharing the information about the program has been helpful because you kind of never know when somebody needs it. It's like bringing it to the top of their inbox or just saying, hey, we have this program. Just as much communication about it as possible, I think is really helpful. I'm also super open about my mental health. And I think that's really, I don't think there is better advice than that is the vulnerability and the authenticity. But then just like the regular communication and reshare, I have found to be super helpful. Also, something we did this year is we just kind of mid-year added to PTO days that we said, use these for your mental health. This year has been incredibly difficult. And we recognize that. And I think it went a long way just to kind of adapt and we're small enough, we can be nimble enough to do that. And I do think that did help as well.
Great insight. That reminded me of Let My People Go Surfing by Yvonne Chouinard, just putting a post-it on 2 days that says, hey, take care of yourself, kind of opens that conversation. All right, other insights, other things you all are seeing in your company or points of suggestion.
Another thing, I'll jump in one more time. Another thing we've seen another company here in Utah doing is the CEO has like these weekly kind of like mental health chats where they can actually talk openly about different things that they're struggling with. So just kind of like, again, kind of that leadership setting that tone, but having kind of weekly check-ins with your team where people can talk about what they're struggling with. One of the other things I heard in our brain trust over and over again was people were saying like how do their employees feel connected to each other when they've been working remotely for a year. Some people have never met each other. Some people are staying remote. And I think that kind of can hit two birds with one stone, so to speak, because if you're having these kind of check-ins with your team where we're talking about how people are doing, discussing their challenges, stress, burnout, anxiety, depression, those types of things, then they're also kind of building those relationships and building that trust with their peers and with the organization as a whole.
I'll just piggyback.
I would like to jump in on this one. Sorry, Allison, you want to go ahead? Okay. A couple of things. First and foremost, as I've seen in previous companies and in different industries, a lot of it is knowing your audience, knowing where we're hiring from, who's applying for our jobs, because some people seem to have traits where they follow certain paths. And so knowing the audience helps us to help guide how we can present information. And then the last thing that has been struggling in the years that I've been doing HR is just finding the tools. I mean, more and more we have tools for apps to find your doctor, to find, you know, where your dentist is or who's in network and stuff. But when it comes to anything more mental health related, right now there's still a lot of people who aren't talking about it. And then when they are, we try to say, okay, well, I want to give them the tools, but I don't even know where to go to. And so you're looking on the billboard along the freeway that says, hey, for suicide helpline or for this, call this number. I was talking to an individual the other day, and he's like, well, I knew we had something in our city, so I just found something, because he didn't know where to find it. And having the tools, having the resources, and then bringing it up, as was said earlier, kind of reminders that Allison said, the reminders, keeping it up there, letting people know about it has been very a strong value add. But we've got to have the tools to help our audience. And that's where I'm seeing it really be a benefit.
No, it was just Amelia's point. Sorry. Thanks, Scott. Was just that we kind of do that. Actually, we have a weekly, we call it our processing space. It's just like reserved time on the whole org-wide calendar every Wednesday after from I think it's 4:30 to 5:30, that is just there and is run actually by our diversity, equity, and inclusion committee leader. And oftentimes it is topics around DEI, but it also found it to be like there were a regular group of people coming, and it ended up just kind of like being a time to talk about really anything. And I do find that the people who attended that got a lot out of it, and just having it there for the people who didn't attend, I do think it made a big difference and showed that like, here's another resource that's like not led by a therapist, but it's just a safe space to come and like discuss the things that are going on. And I think it was really well received. So I do suggest that if anybody can make that happen. It was just over Zoom.
Yeah, that actually reminds me of another thing that we're seeing a lot among businesses too, is just kind of bringing a licensed therapist in to kind of work with managers too, and teach them and give them the tools they need to direct their employees toward whatever resources it is that you do have access to. And also kind of like recognizing it, because as like our managers are not trained to like recognize, oh, these are signs of anxiety or depression or substance abuse or PTSD, right? So having somebody who is trained to do that, kind of give them the tools that they need to recognize that in their own team members, and then to point them in the right direction of the resources that you have available. I'm seeing that happening a lot too across businesses all over the US. And that's been super effective just because they're just not fully equipped and they just need better tools.
All right. Well, we're at time here. The last thing, as you all were talking and sharing some great insights, I had the opportunity to do a podcast with Johnny Hanna at Homey, who is the founder of Homey. If you don't know the company, look them up. It was a podcast about culture, and I thought it was really fascinating what he did. Which he essentially did is he took the company values and he tied them back to mental health. And so one of his company values was humility. And so if an employee wasn't being humble, it probably came from a place of pride, which led to, it opened up an opportunity to unpack maybe some mental health constructs that we can get ourselves into, right? That we protect ourselves with. And so just by him doing that, it created this really cool opportunity to open up the conversations that you all have been talking about. And so perhaps when I did that show, I was like, wow, this is like the next forefront, being able to tie your company values to, mental health, healthy mental health thinking, right, is really valuable for employees. So with that, I want to thank everyone who contributed. I want to thank you all for being here. Thanks for coming on, and thanks for coming to our Brain Trust. We'll see you at the next one.
Woo! Thanks, guys.